Hey! Asante sana for joining us for another classic episode of the Weekend Edition. I'm your host, Dr. Kingori Maze. IBC has so far cleared 4 in the race to become the 5th in the 2022 presidential elections, and most of the meat of this episode is drawn from the drama experience to reduce the number from over 40 aspirants. Billionaire Jimmy Wanjigi has allegedly been barred for lack of a degree certificate, further proving that in this country you only need a degree to get a job, not to make money. Now, while presenting his papers to the IBC, Jimmy Wanjigi could not hide his frustrations from the IBC chairman, Wafula Chebukati.
You will not get away with summarize your and you can speak to your supporters out there. You summarize. We have other candidates to clear. I will cut you.
You will not cut me.
You have 1 minute.
No.
Yes.
You are not going to tell me that you're in... Hello?
You can speak to your supporters out there. So I've made my decision, and you can speak to your supporters. Thank you.
Ati do not cut me. Na naongea na Chebukati. Now, haters wanauliza, if money talks, mbona alinyamaza after Mike ilizimika? I'm confused lakini. Angeendelea tu na story. He was addressing Chebukati. Chebukati yako hapo tu. Do you really need a microphone for that? But I can feel his frustrations. First, we una imagine kupull up na safina, ukatazwe kuingia, na unajua hawa sewa wameingiza wheelbarrow. The ironies of this world. Safina iko na watu wawili tu, just like the Bible times, kuingia wawili, lakini wheelbarrow imejaa watu. But if I was in a position to advise the Honorable Jimmy Wanjigi, I'd encourage him to learn how to read his environment and listen to his surroundings. Hebu sikia ngoma IBC waliekea Jimmy Wanjigi akiingia. Ajui ameshaanza kuambiwa mazi asira bado inakaa, asira bado ina. Sasa bado ni masmile, Anyway, now from Wanjigi, IBC had to deal with Mudhira Kariara, who decided to ban his voter's card after learning that he would not be cleared.
Money for those that were able to get these documents, a minimum of at least 10 shillings for those that willingly gave it. We've had people hawking IDs from Harambee House, those that have the monopoly of these documents.
Now this is weird because only one candidate amekuwa akijulikana na kuchoma. But there are talks that Mudhira could be charged for the action ya kuchoma hiyo kura. However, pundits claim that it will be very unfair to charge mtu juu ya kuchoma kura, yet in all the previous elections hakuna mtu ameshikwa juu ya kuvotia Waweru Ngethe. And it is the same thing, though kuna watu wanasema the difference is that kuvotia mtu haendi mahali ni kuchoma in private. That's why it's called a secret ballot. Mudhira alichoma in public. Now another interesting development kwa hiyo mchujo ya presidential elections is the entry of Professor Wajakoya and the removal of Walter Mongare aka Nyambane, who had previously been cleared. Wajakoya of course amewekwa ndio wasewajuja wasikose kutokea siku ya elections. Na hapo kwa Nyambane, IBC must have been like, no, Moi has already occupied that seat without a degree. That error cannot go undetected. In other news, citizens of the nation known for dressing to kill have expressed mixed reactions after claims that Mitumba clothes previously were owned by dead people.
When then they brought Mitumba, it killed all our sexual industries. Our people are only wearing clothes coming from outside the country. They have been worn by people who are dead. We are not moving anybody out of business. We will ensure that those who are importing Mitumba get the first hand to market goods which are going to be manufactured here.
Now this has to be one of the most politicized campaign promises yet. Sahi hatuwezi piga mtu compliment roho safi. Buda mazee luku imeweza mazee. Si utawaua leo. Kumbe washakufa. Now, the reporting on the promise by the Azimio presidential candidate is that wase wanasema ati he promised to ban Mitumba. So kuna watu walisikia tu kuban Mitumba, akili ikaenda kwa vile komba uchomeka. Now, to give us a comment on how this directive affects the industry, we brought in one of Kenya's established Mitumba traders to give us a perspective on that controversial pledge. Grace Wambere, ladies and gentlemen. How does local manufacturing compare to Mitumba biz?
The comparison is here. First of all, manufacturing clothes in Kenya, the cost of production will be high. Do we have the raw materials, for example? We have to first get the raw materials for us to, what do you call those, the farms, zimsimamishwe tena, ndio tena wa employ. Raw materials lazima zikuwe zimemea, ujijua lazima zipandwe, kitu kama cotton, for example.
No, wait.
Yes.
So raw materials,
si
tunaongea mtu kwanza nini cotton, si ndio?
Saa kwanza wangekuwa naanza kutafuta mashamba za kupanda cotton.
So hii mtu anapiga eka moja unaambia ni suti mbili.
Not necessarily that way, but we need the raw materials to produce. If we don't have them, hata tufufue the manufacturing companies, we have to import the raw materials then.
Okay, vest moja ni 5 bob kwa mtumba.
Kwa mtu. Hey, hapana, around 50 bob. 50 bob 100.
Imeenda sana. Na vest moja kupanda shamba ya cotton na nini kuvuna. What is the cost of
Inaweza
production?
fika 500.
Fertilizer imepanda.
Inaweza fika 500. We have EPZ in Kenya. I think everybody knows.
Yes.
And the clothes that are being produced there, how much do you get them at? Jeans hawezi pata na less than 2,000. 2,500. And see, they are being produced in Kenya hapa Kitengela.
Jutuni.
Because of the cost of production.
Gari.
Cost of production. Yeah.
Latest concern na story ya Mtush ni ati ni nguo za watu walikuwa wamededi. Do you as businessmen care to know where these clothes come from? Ama business people care to know where these clothes come from? Ama Mitumba wanted dead or alive?
Personally, I studied in Germany. I was there for 8 good years, and I know where these clothes come from. In Germany, Europe, and the US, how many seasons do we have? We have 4 seasons. There's summer, there's spring, there's autumn, and there's winter. Okay. They come once in a year. After each and every season, these people take these clothes and they give them out. The same way we used to have some plans with Nakumat. Nakumat used to have my dustbins, and you could go and throw clothes that you aren't wearing. Yes, they used to collect them. Actually, hapa Nini Lifestyle, they had one. So if umekuanga na top
pia za kutoka kwa dustbin.
Hatukufungua, hatukuziuza, sijui zilienda wapi, but they were being collected. The same way pia huku tunaendanga tukicollect nguo zenye hatutumi, tunaenda tumapatiana kwa children's home ama kwingine.
Basically Kenya is one big children's home.
Are you twisting?
No, I'm not twisting.
No.
Wapi makofi ya Grace? Asante sana. Now, the topic on this episode is a follow-up of the conversation we had with Jemo Ulemse and Swidi Nyar Kano. We got a lot of reactions on the points made on that episode, especially on how men and women should relate na pia mambo ya spiritualism. Now, we have decided to take your recommendation to bring Apostle Mr. T and invite Swidi Nyar Kano back to get clarity on some of the things we discussed on that episode. Hii ni moto mazi. Tuko na Apostle Mr. T na Vivian Tabu aka Swidi Nyar Kano on the other end of this short commercial break. See you guys. Welcome back to the weekend edition. Mazee, asante sana for joining us. Show nzito sana tuko nayo. This is a follow-up conversation of an episode yenye tulikuwa na Swidi Nyar Kano ama Vivian Tabu na Jemo Ulemse, na walikuwa na different definition ya spirituality na some of the things ama how we live our lives. So we were highly requested tulete Vivian Tabu na Mr. T for a follow-up conversation. Ndio Mr. T make clarity kwa wale watu wana profess the Christian faith. So for that reason, Mr. T is in the house. Alafu Vivian Tabu is in the house. Sawa. Asanteni sana kwa kukamshow.
Thank you for having me.
So I think the best place hata kuanza ni you had a different definition of sin when you came, si ndio?
Yes.
So just so that tuanze na place ya tuanzie conversation na dhambi. What is sin?
Okay, thank you so much for that particular question.
Karibu.
Sin, according to spirituality that I follow personally, is the original definition of sin. When you look at the Hebrew, definition is missing a mark. To sin is to miss a mark. But then what marks do we miss? When you're told you're missing a mark, then what marks do we miss? And according to my understanding of it is everybody has a soul path that they follow. And before you come into this particular dimension, there's a soul path that is tailor-made specifically for you as a person. So as you move through this soul path, there are marks that are there to lead you in the correct soul path. Take for example, ulikuwa unatembea kwa barabara and then kuna two splashes of light that are leading you to a particular destination. So every time you miss these particular marks, and what are they in your life? Whenever you're missing a mark, it's like you're running against the current, okay? You're betraying yourself, There's internal conflict between what you personally feel aligned with and the path that you're taking. So every time you miss these particular marks on your soul path, then you fall out of alignment with yourself. Every time you fail to choose yourself, you fall out of alignment with yourself. And when you fall out of alignment with yourself, you move away from the advanced version of yourself, from your destination. So to me, that is the definition, the very definition of sin.
Okay, now in English now, if you were to explain what we consider as sin, like the 10 Commandments, do not covet, do not attempt to make children before marriage. Like, you don't consider that sin.
Personally, when it comes to my definition of sin, it has everything to do with you as a person. It has everything to do with your own path as a person. And it has nothing to do with your external environment. It has nothing to do with the laws that society has set, because all these laws are contextual. The time that we live in is very different from the time that other people live in. And some of these laws that we follow right now were created at a time when those people, like for example, the Israelites, they were dealing with totally different things from what we deal with now. And so our existence as at now, all of us have our own inner system of guidance, intuition. We all have a gut feeling, inner system of guidance. And every time you go against this inner system of guidance, you are missing the marks.
How do you explain sin from the kind of spirituality that a Christian practices?
It's missing the mark. And that mark is set by God. You don't set your own mark. You see, a lot of things she's saying are very deep, but trying to exclude God from the picture. That you have a soul path. Who created that path? Because you're not a driver of yourself. So we are dealing with what we are calling the new age philosophy, where we want to kick God out of the equation. And now we're introducing me-ism. It's me. So don't give me these external parameters. But at the end of the day, the 10 Commandments resonate perfectly with what we call the law of morality. Killing, whether in Israel or in Turkana, is killing. It's whether in government or out. According to the law of morality, which every man is aligned to a certain moral pattern, which is beyond logical analysis. It's an alignment. Yani ulizaliwa, ukiwa na hizi vitu ndani yako, huwezi zikataa, ziko ndani yako. Lakini sasa ukianza kuangalia the source of morality, unadiscover kuna divine force, na hiyo divine force ni God. So hizo marks ni God ameweka. Na man haizi survive bila governance. Na man anakuanga, kwa book ya Romans inasemanga, since they rejected God, God permitted them to walk in their reprobate minds. Ama kwa lugha ya Kiswahili, Mungu aliallow watembee na wenda wazimu wao. Alafu hapo sasa inaanza kubonga, nasema, na ndio maana waka lose desire ya men wakaanza kudozi na wanaume, maledi wakaanza kudozi na maledi. So ni kumaanisha kila binadamu akona kawenda wazimu kake akikosa kuwa guarded by God, because we can't govern ourselves. So anything that God has instructed me to do and I don't do it, then I consider that as missing the mark, because it is God who sets the mark. Secondly, ni mdeep sana kwa hizo spirituality, but pali definitive factor ukuja ni ati spirituality kuna 2 dimensions. Kuna the fallen status tunaitanga the demonic world, na kuna the status yenye mesimama, which is where God is. So when you study totality of spirituality, inakuanga na legalism, inakuanga na protocols, iko na system ya operation. But now kuna level sasa unakutanga sasa umeingia uchawi na ujui. So baka to define ni spirituality gani una deal nayo. Unaweza kuwa umeingia realm fulani, sasa tuna deal na mapepo. Na bado ni intellectual, ni deep sana, ni intellectual. So mimi nikiangalia kutoka kwa scripture, kuna place naweza anza kusieve niseme hapa tumeingia witchcraft. Hapa bado tuko kwa ufalme.
You know, one thing that first of all, with spirituality, personally, I don't even care whether people join spirituality or not. As long as it is working for me, I'm totally good. You know, Christians, my mom is a staunch Christian. I have friends who are staunch Christians. Yes, as long as it is working for you, go with it. I'm good, you know. As long as it is working for me, I'll go with it and I'm good. But let me tell you, who taught you that the dark was a bad thing? Who taught you that demons look scary? It's the society that we grow up in. You know,
I think the devil is cute.
No, let me tell you, the idea of fear, the idea of fearing the dark, the idea of fearing the devil stems from the society's idea of fearing taking responsibility. You understand? Everybody wants to associate with their light side, you know, with the light side. Everybody wants to come and say, you know, I'm a good person. And then that one is a bad person. But at the end of the day, there are no good people and there are no bad people on this planet. There are people who are just aware of what is going on, and there are people who participate in the badness without being aware. They are just aware people and people who are not aware. There are no good people or bad people in this world. But the moment you are aware, you know, the world is a dangerous place. We know it's a man society. But the moment you are aware of your danger, because when the right button is pressed, every sane human being is capable of going against the laws of nature. But then you recognizing that I am made up of dark entities and light entities. Then you step in the awareness of these entities, both of these entities, so you are able to control them instead of sitting and denying. You know that we Christians, we are good people, we do good things. But then it's just, you do the bad things in the dark. Because we know, we've grown up in this society where people just fear the dark because they fear themselves. People fear the dark because they fear the unknown. And I want to answer you, when I talk about God being the universe, I don't say that now I'm supporting the creation. That is just my preference of calling my own personal creator. Because in the beginning, they told you in the book of Genesis, in a beginning, you know, there was God. And in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. God was the creation. Like, what was this word? Intention, at the end of the day. Because every time you speak, you cast spells. That is why when you spell words, you know, you're casting a spell. Every time you speak, you're casting a spell. So, you know, articulation of each and every word is called spelling, right? So every time you speak, you're casting a spell. And this was the spell that was available with God. And this is the spell that we all have, intentions. At the end of the day, when you want to tap something into the spirit, from the spirit realm, you tap it through intention. But God created the universe. So God created himself. God created us so that he experiences himself through us. That is why your body is called the temple of God. You're just a puppet, and there is God that is controlling this particular puppet. Okay.
Yeah. So according to your definition, Christianity is an association of cowards.
To me, Christianity is a weapon of control. There is modern Christianity, and then there was traditional Christianity, the one that our ancestors believed in, the one with its origin from Ethiopia. But then again, we have to acknowledge If you studied, if you studied history, you studied some of the effects of Bible translation, biblical translation. With time it becomes biased, you know. Saizi uletewe Bible saizi, uambiwe we edit kitu watu watatumia in future. You will edit it according to your own context. And we know politics in the world, and we know governments have been involved in the translation of the Bible. It lost its meaning. It lost a lot of its meanings over time. And there are some parts of the Bible that were edited to remove black people from it.
Okay.
And the Bible that most of the Christians use today, it was a weapon of control that was designed to create slaves.
Okay.
Wacha tu niongee.
Sawa sawa. If my director can give me 2 minutes for you to respond.
Kitu moja tu ndasema,
Yes.
YouTube see source ya information. And this is what I call unbiased kind of debate. Kwa sababu, it is true the Bible was edited, but again there's the other side. You can't publish something that has errors. But otherwise tutaanza kusuizi publication. It is true kuna vitu zilikuwa omitted. Bible ime go through scholars wame scrutinize kuangalia from the original to what is there.
Okay.
Hakuna intention ya Bible in terms of it. Christianity kutoka Ethiopia. This is African propagandist. Na hizi ndo vitu zinaanza kuseliwa huko nje. Hakuna citation ya kitu tunaweza ita intellectual ama academic book imekotiwa. These are just ni arguments za YouTube. Hata mimi leo naweza enda YouTube niseme unajua Kikuyu walitokanga Egypt na nipige ma philosophy. Na after hapo mzee akuja asema Kikuyu walitoka philosophy. So what is happening? We live in a very polarized kind of society, and YouTube is not a library. Anyone can drop their junk there. And please, for the sake of intellectualism, it's good for us to come with facts. What she has said, majority, it's not factual. These are arguments that are in YouTube that cannot be quantified as academically factual.
They're not in YouTube.
They cannot be quantified.
When you study history,
yes,
basic history.
Which history?
You know, basic history of Africa, pre-colonization period.
Yes.
And then you study the colonization period.
Yes.
And then you study the post-colonization period.
Yes.
You realize that Africa, Kitambo, we had cities like Axum, we had people like Akina Solomon, and then Akina Menelik. These are descendants from Africa who came from the lineage of Solomon. And it is something that is there in history. And remember, there was a time in history.
Let me correct you. Wacha ni kucorrect. Wacha ni mcorrect. Unaona sasa your example ya Menelik.
Yes.
Menelik, it's an assumption at the Queen of Sheba alienda akadozi na Solomon akarudi na ball. No history supports. Nayo ndo imebad Rastafarianism. Now you see what we are doing. We are throwing we are throwing jargons without what we call academic reference. There was no connection. That's why all kuja akasema after Menelik alizaliwa ndio Haile Selassie alizaliwa, na so from the lineage of Solomon then to corner the black
from
Messiah.
The tribe of the Lion of Judah.
So nasikia now these are things that cannot be quantified historically. Listen, there are 2 levels of history. There is academic history which can be verified through time, and books are there. And then sasa kuna hii history ya kila mtu kupeana. Ni kama vile tu Kikuyu sema Mungu wetu ako Mount Kenya na alitoka huko. You can't quantify that reality through academia. So I'll encourage us, as we're having this conversation, let's come to a place of academia where we can quantify, cite, and give evidence, because anyone can say anything. How do you prove that a certain city existed in the 14th century? Are there archaeological evidences? Sasa ukiniambia kulikuwa na msanii anaitwa Ananak Anakum, alikuwa Sudan, alikuwa mfalme. Hawezi prove kulikuwa na Ananak Anakum. You see, there's something coming, and that's what she's pushing. Inaitwa African Renaissance. Na ni historia kurudisha Waafrika place walitoka. But there is insufficiency of data. So we have philosophy, assumptions, and vitu tu watu wanataka kusema.
What is the reason for this insufficiency of data?
Vivian,
because
in terms of references, is there any reference you can give us yenye tunaweza enda to follow ya kusema sijui kama Queen Sheba ndiye alikuwa msupa wa
hiyo kitu iliandikwa na ni mse wa Jamaica aliandika. That's how Nini was formed. The whole thing.
You know,
Yes.
let me tell you one thing from what he's talking about, and this is the problem that we have as Africans. This is the problem that we have. We had our own history. We had history of where we come from, okay? But then you remember during the right before colonialism, when the missionaries came to Africa, and then people like Akina Pythagoras started ransacking books from African libraries, and then universities in Africa were burnt. And then these books were, you know, some of them were transferred to universities like Athens in Europe and everything. When you go back into the historical, and most of the time you find that during our history, Africans used to pass information through word of mouth.
Yes.
And also through, you know, storytelling. And most of it, when you go down the history lane, you read about, you know, books by people like Marcus Garvey, you know, people like Chancellor William.
Marcus Garvey ni wajuzi.
Yeah, those are people.
Ushaifanya research ya broken telephone. Unaambia msee kitu, by the time nafikia the 9th person, see the same thing aliambiwa. So if our history was transferred by word of mouth, we don't have the genuine history.
No, but
by
we have
the scientific evidence of broken
even Ethiopia
telephone.
is even in the Bible, you know.
Even Ethiopia is there. Ethiopia is there.
Tukifunga, give us one reference, tafadhali. Tukifunga, yes, one reference of a book we can read so that we can.
When you go to my Instagram on my highlights,
yes.
There's so many books. There's so many books I've placed there that you can read about the African spirituality and African history.
Sawa.
My highlights on Instagram.
Sawa, acha tuende kwa highlights kwa Instagram. I think
Instagram is not a library. Anyway, thank you.
But that is our modern way of interaction.
I make a reference. Kama ziko tangalia.
Ziko there.
I make a reference ya vitabu. I think we need to set this up for a part 2. Kama una feel we need to do a second part of this conversation. Na hiyo part ingine tukuje na reference ya hizo vitabu amesema. Apostle Mr. T, sijui tutakuja na Bible ya ku cross check.
Yeah, kuna books history.
Next time kama tunakuja na reference to bebe reference.
History is an open page.
The next conversation ya kufunga history tunafunga na references. Apostle Mr. T atakuja na vitabu zake. Vivian Tabu atakuja na vitabu zake. That's it for the weekend edition. See you next week. My name is Dr. Kingori.